This is not a third world tragedy. This is America, where thousands sleep on concrete, wrapped in torn blankets, breathing in exhaust fumes. Where the morning routine isn't coffee, it's digging through dumpsters for half-eaten leftovers. Where trash bins offer more comfort than the system built to protect them. Don't skip this video, because if this is what survival looks like in the richest nation on Earth, you need to see what's coming next. Welcome to America, the land of billion-dollar dreams, luxury towers, and endless freedom. But just beyond the skyline, people sleep on sidewalks, wrapped in plastic, breathing in exhaust fumes. They dig through dumpsters for dinner. They wash in public fountains. This isn't a scene from a war-torn country. This is happening right now in broad daylight in the richest nation on Earth. And the numbers aren't just rising, they're exploding. If you think this doesn't concern you, think again. Because the collapse isn't coming, it's already here. Don't skip this video, watch till the end. And if this story shakes you, hit like, subscribe, and share it. The truth deserves to be seen. Homelessness in America, a national emergency. Welcome to America, a nation of towering skylines, billion-dollar industries, and endless promises. But behind the polished glass and glowing billboards lies a crisis that's growing louder by the day. On any given night, more than 600,000 people in the United States sleep without shelter. That number isn't just alarming, it's a national emergency. And yet, it unfolds in silence, buried beneath headlines, ignored by policy, and normalized by society. From Los Angeles to New York, sidewalks have become mattresses. Public parks now serve as shelters. Underpasses have turned into survival zones. These aren't temporary setbacks. These are permanent realities for hundreds of thousands of people who've been pushed to the margins. They sleep on concrete, exposed to freezing winds, scorching heat, and the constant threat of violence. Their lives unfold in full view of the public, yet they remain invisible. This crisis doesn't discriminate. It affects veterans who once served their country, now left to beg beneath the flag they defended. It affects the elderly, who worked their entire lives only to be priced out of housing. It affects the disabled, abandoned by a healthcare system that promises support but delivers neglect. And it affects working-class Americans, people with full-time jobs who still sleep in cars or on the streets because their wages can't keep up with rent. This isn't just poverty. It's the collapse of compassion, the failure of policy, the erosion of infrastructure. It's what happens when housing becomes a luxury instead of a human right, when mental illness is stigmatized instead of treated, when addiction is criminalized instead of healed, and when empathy is replaced by indifference. The consequences are devastating. People living on the streets face constant exposure to disease, hunger, and trauma. They lack access to clean water, sanitation, and medical care. Many suffer silently, their stories erased by public indifference. This is not a glitch, this is the system, and the longer we ignore it, the deeper the collapse becomes. Life on the footpath, survival without shelter. Living on the streets in America means waking up every day without safety, without privacy, and without dignity. It's not just the absence of a roof, it's the absence of protection, of peace, of basic human rights. For those forced to survive on footpaths, every moment is a test of endurance, of resilience, and of whether they'll make it through another night. There are no bathrooms, no clean water, no shelter from the rain, the heat, or the cold. People sleep on concrete, wrapped in thin blankets or plastic sheets, hoping they won't be robbed, assaulted, or forced to move. Many sleep with one eye open, clutching their few belongings, because losing a backpack might mean losing everything they have left in the world. Finding food becomes a daily mission. Some dig through trash bins behind restaurants. Others rely on handouts or soup kitchens if they're lucky enough to find one nearby. And rest? That's a luxury. Even sitting in public spaces can lead to harassment or arrest. In many cities, laws treat homelessness as a nuisance, not a crisis. People are fined for sleeping in public, pushed out of sight, and swept away like debris. This isn't a lifestyle, it's a last resort. No one chooses to live this way. They end up here because every other option failed, because shelters were full, rent was unaffordable, or help came too late. And what makes this reality even more disturbing is where it's happening. In the richest country on earth. In cities that boast luxury hotels, tech empires, and billion-dollar stadiums, just blocks away from people sleeping beside dumpsters. This is what survival looks like when society turns its back. And it's happening in plain sight. The housing crisis. The cost of housing in America has spiraled beyond control. In major cities like San Francisco, New York, and Los Angeles, rent prices have doubled, sometimes tripled, within a single decade. Meanwhile, wages have barely moved. The gap between what people earn and what they're expected to pay for shelter has become impossible to bridge. And the result? Thousands of Americans are being priced out of their homes and pushed onto the streets. This crisis doesn't just affect the unemployed. It's hitting full-time workers, teachers, nurses, retail staff, delivery drivers, people who serve the community every day. They're working 40, sometimes 60 hours a week and still can't afford a safe place to sleep. Some live in cars, others couch surf. Many end up in shelters or on sidewalks, not because they're lazy, but because the math simply doesn't add up. Affordable housing programs, once a lifeline for low-income families, have been slashed or neglected. Public housing waitlists stretch for years, and gentrification has accelerated the displacement of entire communities. As luxury developments rise, longtime residents are forced out, replaced by wealthier tenants and higher rents. Neighborhoods that once offered stability now offer eviction notices. The housing market has turned shelter into a luxury, and survival into a privilege. In a country with more vacant buildings than homeless people, the problem isn't space, it's priorities. When profit outweighs people, homes become investments, not lifelines, and those who can't keep up are left behind. This isn't just an economic issue, it's a moral one. Because when a full-time job can't guarantee a roof over your head, something is deeply broken. Mental health and addiction. Mental illness and addiction are not side issues. They are central to America's homelessness crisis. Walk through any urban street and you'll see the symptoms not just of poverty, but of untreated trauma. Thousands of people living on the streets suffer from serious mental health conditions: schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, PTSD, and severe depression. These aren't abstract diagnoses. They're daily battles, fought without medication, without therapy, and without support. Instead of receiving care, these individuals are often ignored, criminalized, or institutionalized. Police are called instead of paramedics. Jail replaces rehab, and the cycle continues. Addiction, which is frequently rooted in trauma and despair, is treated not as a health issue, but as a moral failure. People are punished for symptoms they never chose, and recovery becomes nearly impossible without access to proper treatment. Rehabilitation centers are underfunded, mental health services are overwhelmed, waiting lists stretch for months and many never get in. For those without insurance or identification, the system is a locked door. And when the institutions fail, the streets become the only refuge. This isn't just a policy gap, it's a humanitarian void. The lack of mental health infrastructure doesn't just leave people untreated, it leaves them exposed, vulnerable, and trapped. Many spiral deeper into addiction, isolation, and psychosis, not because they want to, but because there's nowhere else to go. Homelessness fueled by mental illness and addiction isn't inevitable, it's preventable. But prevention requires compassion, funding, and a shift in how society sees those who suffer. Until then, the streets will remain crowded, not just with people, but with pain. Systemic failure, when help becomes a maze. In America, even those who seek help often find themselves trapped, not by poverty alone, but by the very systems designed to offer relief. Shelters, the first line of defense against homelessness, are overcrowded, underfunded, and in some cases unsafe. People arrive hoping for protection and dignity, but instead face long lines, limited beds, and environments that can be chaotic or even threatening. For many, the shelter system feels less like refuge and more like roulette. Government assistance, too, is buried under layers of bureaucracy. Applications require documentation that many homeless individuals simply don't have: proof of income, identification, permanent addresses. Wait lists for housing vouchers stretch for months, sometimes years. Eligibility rules are confusing, inconsistent, and often exclude those in the most urgent need. The process is slow, demoralizing, and riddled with red tape. And in some cities, the response has taken a darker turn. Homelessness itself is being criminalized. Laws banning sleeping in public spaces, loitering, or setting up tents have turned survival into a punishable offense. Police sweeps confiscate personal belongings, blankets, medications, family photos, leaving people with nothing but trauma. Fines are issued to those who have no money. Arrests are made for the act of resting. The message is clear: if you're homeless, stay invisible or face consequences. This isn't just a broken system. It's a system that actively pushes people deeper into despair. It punishes vulnerability, it rewards silence, and it leaves thousands trapped in a maze with no exit. When help becomes harder to access than the streets themselves, we must ask, who is the system really serving? The human cost, stories that hurt to hear. Behind every statistic in America's homelessness crisis is a story that hurts to hear. These aren't faceless numbers, they're people with names, memories, and lives that once held promise. A veteran who once wore the uniform with pride now sleeps under a bridge, his service forgotten, his dignity stripped away. He fought for his country, but now fights just to stay warm. A teenager, rejected by their family for reasons never spoken, now survives alone on the streets, dodging danger, hunger, and the crushing weight of isolation. These are not criminals. These are not failures. These are survivors. Some fled abusive homes. Others lost jobs, faced medical emergencies, or were simply born into circumstances stacked against them. They didn't choose homelessness. Homelessness chose them. Through a system that promised opportunity but delivered abandonment. These stories are everywhere, yet rarely told. They unfold in alleyways, underpasses, and tent-lined sidewalks. And while the rest of the world moves on, these lives unravel in silence. The emotional toll is staggering. Living without shelter means living without safety, without rest, without hope. It means being treated like a problem instead of a person. It means being invisible until someone complains, and it means carrying trauma that no camera ever captures. This is the human cost of a broken system. It's not just about housing. It's about how society defines worth. When survival becomes shameful and suffering becomes routine, we must ask, what kind of nation have we become? What can be done? Hope in action. Despite the darkness, there are glimmers of hope. Across America, quiet revolutions are taking place, led not by headlines, but by human compassion. Community shelters, mobile clinics, and food banks are saving lives every single day. They offer more than just resources. They offer dignity, a warm meal, a safe bed, a moment of relief in a world that rarely pauses for the vulnerable. Some cities are stepping up with bold experiments. Tiny home villages are being built to give people privacy, safety, and a sense of ownership. Guaranteed housing programs are proving that when you give someone a stable place to live, everything else begins to heal: mental health, employment, relationships. Trauma-informed care is replacing punishment with understanding, recognizing that homelessness is often the result of deep wounds, not personal failure. And then there are the volunteers, ordinary people showing up, not with judgment, but with empathy. They hand out blankets, offer medical aid, listen to stories, and treat the homeless not as problems, but as people. Their impact may not be televised, but it's transformative. Change is possible, but it won't come from policy alone. It requires awareness, knowing the crisis exists. It requires empathy, feeling the weight of someone else's struggle. And most of all, it requires action, from all of us. Whether it's donating, advocating, or simply refusing to look away, every step matters. Because the solution to homelessness isn't just in government buildings, it's in communities, it's in compassion, and it starts with choosing to care. A call to conscience. This isn't just a documentary, it's a mirror, a reflection of what we choose to see and what we choose to ignore. The stories you've heard aren't fiction. They're happening right now in real cities, to real people, just blocks away from luxury towers and billion-dollar stadiums. Homelessness in America isn't a distant tragedy. It's a national wound, visible, growing, and too often dismissed. If this story moved you, don't let it end here. Don't scroll past and forget. Speak up. Share this message. Support those working on the front lines, volunteers, outreach workers, and organizations fighting every day to restore dignity and hope. Because change doesn't start in silence. It starts with awareness, with empathy, with action. The shadows of the city are growing, and every day we wait, more lives slip through the cracks. But together we can shift the narrative. We can demand better policies, stronger support systems, and real solutions that treat homelessness not as a crime, but as a crisis worth solving. So if you believe in compassion, in justice, in the power of truth, then do something. Like this video, subscribe to this channel, share it with someone who needs to see it, because the time to act isn't tomorrow, it's now.